Welcome to you all. This is another Coffee Break Catch Up. My name is Mark. I am your Coffee Break host, and I'm delighted to be here. And I hope that everyone can hear me. Last week we had a few problems with the sound, but this week I've brought a different mic in, and I hope that you can hear me. Let me know if this is all making sense and that you can hear me. And let us know where you're viewing from. It's good to see some of you posting already. Nice to see you joining us this Thursday. It's Thursday afternoon here in Scotland. It is no doubt Thursday at different times of the day, depending on where you are. So let us know where you're watching, what language you're learning, of course, and hopefully you will enjoy the Coffee Break catch-up that we've got for you today. Let us find out what is happening in this edition. So we've got our Coffee Break news, our roundup of everything that's happening within Coffee Break languages. We'll be sharing that with you. And we have an interesting talking point today. Now, our talking point is all about learning more than one language at the same time. So if that's something that you are involved in, if you're learning more than one language at the same time, then let us know if you have any tips or if you've experienced any particular ways or strategies for learning more than one language at the same time. It would be great to hear your opinions. But we will be coming back to that a little later on when we start to think about multiple languages at the same time in our talking point. So after that, we'll be doing our cultural roundup, and we'll be sharing some cultural ideas for you this coming weekend, and also sharing the ideas about our Coffee Break catch-up newsletter. So more of that a little later. But for now, let's get straight on with the show and bring you our Coffee Break news. Okay, so sounding good. I see Ray is telling us that it's sounding good. Thank you for letting us know, Ray. Hopefully everyone can hear this week. Let us go straight to our Coffee Break news. If I bring in this slide again, I should be able to change this here, and we will start with the 6th episode in season 1 of the Coffee Break French magazine. Now, this is all about le 9e art, literally the 9th art. Now, the 9th art refers to the 9th art, which is comic books. Les bandes dessinées. So we're focusing on comic books in episode 6, and we talk about things like Asterix, which I'm sure you've heard of, Tintin from Belgium, and other famous comic strips, which are very, very popular within the French-speaking world. So if you're into that, and if you're interested in that, then make sure you check out episode 6 of the Coffee Break French magazine. So what else? Well, we also have launched our Coffee Break German magazine, and we were delighted to launch with an episode all about Tatort. And Tatort is a very well-known concept in all German-speaking countries. It's a crime series that happens on a Sunday night, I think at 8:15 on a Sunday night, and everyone sits down to watch the latest episode in the Tatort series. So again, if you're interested in all things German, then you'll be able to check out the Tatort episode in our Coffee Break German magazine, which is now available. Now, our Coffee Break Italian magazine starts again next week, so you can look forward to the next episode of the Coffee Break Italian magazine on the 9th of September. What else has been happening in Coffee Break Languages? Well, we're continuing to publish our Tune for Tuesday series. And this is a series where we're publishing a song or a piece of music. And each week we give you some background information on that and links to the lyrics, where you can test your language skills with the lyrics of the song. So our Tune for Tuesday this week was für Frauen ist, I can't see this on my screen, für Frauen ist das kein Problem. It is not a problem for women. Now, I don't know a lot about this song, so I don't want to say too much about it, but we can find out more about it on the website. So check out our Tune for Tuesday every Tuesday on the website, and that also links to a Spotify playlist and a YouTube playlist if you fancy learning some language through song. So that's Tune for Tuesday. Check that out. Okay, moving on, we also have our Question of the Week feature, and this is our weekly feature both on Facebook and on Instagram. And this week we're asking, quelles autres langues aimerais-tu apprendre et pourquoi? Oder welche anderen Sprachen möchtest du lernen und warum? vuoi imparare una nuova lingua, quale e perché? ¿Qué lenguaje te gustaría aprender y por qué? So, which other language would you like to learn? So, that is our question of the week. And of course, all our questions of the week are answered by our colleagues. So, we have Susie and Olivera and Francesca and Sofia answering those questions on our Facebook pages and on our Instagram feed. And you can contribute your own answer to the comments there. Our question of the week every Thursday. Now, we've just launched a new 1-minute language course on the YouTube channel, and this week it's the turn of Flemish, Vlaams. Vlaams is the language spoken in Belgium, and one of the two official languages of Belgium, of course, the other being French. So Flemish is very similar to Dutch. Some people would say it's a dialect of Dutch. There's lots of discussion around that, polemic discussion. But Flemish is the language available in the 1-minute language series this week. And coming up next week, we're going to be posting 1-minute Portuguese on the YouTube channel. So make sure you tune in for that. And our final announcement this week is a big one. This is the launch of the Coffee Break Masterclass. Now, our Masterclass is starting again in October. That means from the 1st of October, you can potentially sign up for the French Masterclass or the Spanish Masterclass, and that's going to be running for 6 months from the 1st of October, right the way through to the end of March. Now, let me tell you a little about the Masterclass. If I bring this slide back up, the Masterclass is, as I said, a 6-month course. So there are monthly modules. Every month we focus on a different topic. There are audio, video, and text resources, as you would imagine. And then we also post homework tasks to help you practice what you've been learning, and we provide feedback on those tasks. So we've got our team here who are ready to help you with your French or your Spanish. And this is ideally aimed at intermediate learners. So if you've already completed season 2 of Coffee Break, then you will be ready for the masterclass. Now, just to be absolutely clear, this is the same masterclass that has run in the past. In fact, we've had over 600 students go through the French masterclass and the Spanish masterclass. So this time it's a new class, the class of October 2019, and we will be running this masterclass all the way through from October through to March. Every month there are 5 lessons. In the first half of the month, you get access to those lessons, and in the second half of the month, it's all about consolidation. So you'll be practicing what you've learned in the course of those first the first half of the month, where you're getting the 5 lessons. So the masterclass will be available for registration very soon. Hopefully later today we will be getting up the launch pages. So they were almost done before we started this, but they're not quite there yet. But we will post the links for the masterclass after the catch up in the comments, so that you can catch up with that and look at the possibility of joining us for the class of October 2019 in the Coffee Break French and Coffee Break Spanish Masterclass. Now, if you've already done the Masterclass, you may be interested to know that there will be a second Masterclass coming next year. So make sure you look into that. We're writing that just now, so that will be ready for next year. Okay, we are going to move on soon to our talking point. And just a reminder, the question on today's talking point is, how do you learn more than one language at the same time? So let's just bring that question up. How do you learn more than one language at a time? So what we're going to do is just ask that question, looking for your thoughts on that question. And when I was wondering about that question, I thought I would ask some very wise people, the wisest people I know, about their thoughts on this. So I'm going to share their thoughts, and I would ask you to share your thoughts. So if you have any thoughts on how you learn more than one language at the same time, please do post them in the comments, and we'll be sharing these in just a moment. But for now, let us turn to our wise friends and find out what they think about learning more than one language at the same time.
My advice for learning more than one language at the same time, so for instance, I learned German and Spanish at the same time, would be to keep 2 notebooks, separate notebooks for each language that you're learning.
Right, my tip for learning 2 languages at the same time. I would choose languages that are quite similar. For example, if you are learning Spanish, then it makes sense to start learning French or Italian because there are many similarities when it comes to the grammar, to the vocabulary. Yeah, there'll be traps, there'll be faux amis, but I think that's what I would go for.
Well, I've got a different view from Pierre Benoit. I think you should try learning two completely different languages. For example, if you were learning German and Dutch, you might find they're quite similar and get mixed up quite easily. So why not try something like French and Japanese, for example?
Hello, my tip for learning two languages at the same time would be to keep them separate in your head by using different colours for each of the languages. So that could be different coloured pens, highlighters or post-it notes.
Well, just get into some sort of routine. So, for example, last year I was working on my Spanish and my Russian at the same time, and I had a very clear schedule. I knew when I was doing Russian, which was mainly during the week, and then I was keeping my Spanish for the weekend. So it was very clear in my mind when to do one language and the other. So good luck!
Yeah, something else that sprang to mind. When you're working very hard on one specific day, you've been working on a specific language, try to chill out another day watching something easy, a film in a different language. So if on a Monday you're working very hard at your Spanish, for example, on a Tuesday you watch a lovely French film and you think you're not working hard. So c'est cool.
So some advice there from the Coffee Break team. Thank you to Susie, to Flora, to Pierre Benoit, to Christina and to Francesca for agreeing to very short notice be on camera there. So what about you? Do you learn more than one language? And if so, have you got any tips for how to separate them in your head? Obviously, many of you will just be learning one language, and that is absolutely fantastic. Don't feel that it's any way less important if you're not learning more than one language. But this was a question that came up in one of our live broadcasts earlier in the week, and so we thought we would talk about this in our talking point today. So we've got Grace, who is saying, j'apprends le français avec Coffee Break French e imparo l'italiano con Coffee Break Italien. Ich spreche auch Deutsch. So Grace, good to see that you're learning more than one language. Again, it's absolutely fine if you're just learning the one. There is no problem with that. But Grace, we'd be interested to know. In fact, I just see that Grace has posted a comment here. I try to read books I know very well in different languages to compare how phrases are translated differently. A really useful way to balance up the difference between those different languages that you're learning. Now, not Grace, but Gracie is saying, I want to learn Spanish and French at the same time. Quite similar, but different rules when it comes to masculine or feminine words, isn't it? Well, each language has slightly different rules depending on the words that are more likely to be feminine or more likely to be masculine. For example, I quite often get mixed up between French and, in fact, I think we mentioned this last week, between French and Spanish when it comes to the word video. So it's une vidéo in French, therefore feminine, and un video in Spanish, and that's masculine. So it can be quite confusing from when words are different genders in different languages, but that's part of the richness of the language. We've got Brian, who is also saying he's learning two languages. I separate the two languages by time. I learn Spanish in the morning and Italian in the evening. That's a brilliant way to separate those languages, because then you try to separate that out in your mind. And in your mind, you know that if you learn something in the morning, then you know which language it is, and you can also associate with the evening with the other language. One of the things I like to do is actually associate it with space and place. So when I'm learning one language, I would do so in a particular place, so in my study at home or something like that. And then when I'm on the train, I may focus on the other language, so that then I know that if it's a word I learned on the train, then it must be the other language, and try to separate it by location and position where I am. We have Stephen saying, I'm struggling to learn French, cannot even imagine adding another. But then he added another comment here although since discovering Coffee Break French, I'm starting to see an improvement. Well, we're delighted to hear that, Stephen. And if you ever do consider learning another language, then of course we've got plenty of other languages for you to choose from. But definitely stick to French for now, and we hope that you continue to enjoy your experience with Coffee Break French. And we've got Hardiancia who's saying bonjour, j'écoute les podcasts pour apprendre les langues. Now, so I'm guessing that means you're listening to our podcast, but perhaps also other podcasts too. So again, listening to different podcasts at different times. Perhaps you could only listen to Spanish podcasts at the gym and French podcasts while you're walking the dog. And then you can speak to your dog in French too. Lots of possibilities. We have got Barbara posting a comment here. Great, as always. I have a comment. Watching my 2 young grandsons in Munich learn 3 languages, English, Spanish and German, since birth has been fascinating. Age makes a wee difference. Well, sometimes it does. Sometimes when younger people seem to pick up languages more easily, then it can be quite challenging for us older learners to see the same kind of progress that young children would make. Grace has got another suggestion here. I use green post-its for Italian and the blue ones for French to associate with the colours of the flags. Great. Again, colour is such an important thing that you can use to help separate things in your mind. The other suggestion that I have, and this is something I've done quite a lot in the past, is using music. So when I am learning a particular language, I really like to associate it with the music from that country. We've mentioned our Tune for Tuesday. And when you're using music, then sometimes different styles of music can help you associate different language rules and so on, because you're listening to that music and you're listening to the types of music, or even perhaps listening to, for example, a classical composer from that country or the country where the language that you're learning is spoken. If you're learning Finnish, you could always put on some Sibelius to listen to in the background, or some Grieg when you're learning Norwegian or something like that. A bit of Ravel for some French or something. We've got Brian who's also commenting here. For those studying Romance languages at the same time, Michael Petrunen has written a book called Comparative Grammar of Spanish, Portuguese, Italian and French. And that sounds like a great book. That'll be on my Christmas list. Thank you for sharing that. So if you do have any thoughts on this, if you're learning more than one language at once, and perhaps if you're watching the replay of this video, then make sure you share your ideas in the comments. But thanks to everyone who has posted some questions or some thoughts here. Just before we move on, this has been our talking point today. How do you learn more than one language at a time? But just before we move on, we'll post another few comments here. We've got Malin who's saying, got home quicker from work today so I can catch part of the catch up live. Delighted to see you, Malin. You're jättevälkomna. We've got Melanie who's just giving a nice big smile. Danuta is saying, I'm thinking about learning Spanish, English and starting Catalan. If you're learning Spanish and Catalan at the same time, that might be quite a challenge. But I'm sure you'll be able to manage that, Danuta. Of course, it's just about separating things in your head. So you can learn your Catalan while you're walking the dog or walking along the street, and learn your Spanish when you're in the car or something like that. Gracie's saying, I agree, I listen to music too. I found it helpful listening to audiobooks and reading along with it. Yep, well done. That's excellent. An excellent idea, Gracie. Grace is saying, I find the different use of subjunctives in French and Italian tricky, but interesting. Yeah, I would agree, because the subjunctive is something that is used differently across different languages. It's very common in Spanish in particular. Similarly common, if perhaps slightly less so in Italian, and in French it is less common, so we do use it in fewer situations in French. But then when you're going from one language into another, you start to think, oh, maybe that's a subjunctive in that language, and then you develop a terrible case of subjunctivitis. Anthony is saying, I just started listening to the podcast 2 weeks ago. It has added a new dimension to my learning and I feel like I'm making progress like never before. It's a wonderful format. Merci beaucoup. Merci à toi, Anthony. That is fantastic to read. And Heather is saying, voy a Málaga el domingo. You're off to Malaga on Sunday. Fantastic. I hope you enjoy that. Do listen. I'm not sure what stage you're at with your Spanish, Heather, But if you can listen to our En Marcha episode where we went on a tapas tour in Malaga, and there were some great locations there. El Mesón Mariano, one of the best Spanish tapas places in Malaga, if you can manage to get there. I'm saying Malaga. If my sons are listening to this in any way, they'll laugh because they always laugh when I say Malaga. Anyway, let us move on. I think it's time to move on to our cultural information now. Thank you for all your comments and all your ideas on learning more than one language at the same time. But let's move on to our cultural roundup now. Okay, so we'll bring in our cultural slides. Actually, before we do that, I just see here we've got a couple of reviews. So this is Ben Allen M on Apple Podcasts, who has said, I've been married to a German for over a decade and had learned a lot of the language in that time. But Coffee Break German has helped me go back and organise and understand why Germans say the things the way they do far better than my wife could explain to me as a native. I cannot recommend this podcast enough. Well, thank you for that comment. I hope your wife isn't watching, Ben. I'm sure she's very good at explaining things too. We also had, that's an old one, we had Gayatri, who is saying, so happy to have come across the Coffee Break French series. The teaching is simply superb, the course content is great, and the overall experience of learning French using Coffee Break is just something that cannot be put into words. Thank you so much, Gayatri, on Facebook for sharing that review. That really means a lot. If you have comments about Coffee Break, then you can post them in Facebook. On the review section on each of our Facebook pages. You can post them on Apple Podcasts. You can also post them on a new site called Podchaser. Podchaser is a new site that is aiming to be the place to go to for information about podcasts. So all of our podcasts are on Podchaser. And if that is something you'd like to do, share a review of Coffee Break over on Podchaser, then that would be great. Okay, back to our cultural information. It is time for our cultural roundup. Now, you will be able to read all about these in our cultural catch-up newsletter, and that comes out tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe to that. I will be giving the link to that in just a moment. But we're going first of all to Spain, more specifically to the Basque country for Euskal Jaiak, which is a celebration of all things Basque culture. So check out that. That runs until the 8th of September. For French speakers, we're heading to Switzerland this week, for Le Village Suisse in Geneva, where there's everything from big wheels to food and dance and entertainment. The Festa della Rificolona, I think I'm saying that correctly. Francesca will help me out if I'm not saying that correctly. But the Festa della Rificolona is a lantern festival in Florence that's happening this weekend. And we also have another festival, this time the Festival of Colours in Hamburg in Germany, which is on the 7th of September. That's this Saturday. So as I say, there will be more information about all of these along with texts in the language that you're learning at our newsletter, which will be published tomorrow morning. So if you're not yet subscribed to the newsletter, then make sure you go to radiolingua.com/newsletter in order to get access to all of this information. Okay, coming up next time, a couple of exciting things. Last week we did a French special, and this coming Thursday, next week, we're doing an Italian special. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up here. And here is Francesca to tell you a little more about that.
Ciao a tutti! I'm really excited to tell you that next week on Thursday the 12th, I'll be co-hosting with Mark our Coffee Break Catch-Up Live. So get ready to ask all the questions you want to ask me about Italian language and Italian culture, and I'll do my best to answer all of your questions. So it's next Thursday the 12th at 3:30 UK time, 10:30 Eastern time or 7:30 Pacific time. Allora, a presto, ciao!
Grazie, Francesca. So Francesca will be with me next Thursday for our coffee break catch-up, and we're looking forward to that. But there's something else about next Thursday. I've said here on our slide, there's some exciting news. Well, there is some exciting news. Next week, we're going to be doing the catch-up slightly differently. That's all I'm going to say for now. But I think you will enjoy next Thursday's catch-up. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Okay, there is other exciting news coming, and I'm going to say today that this exciting news will be being announced on the 18th of October. That's the plan anyway. We're going to be making some announcements on the 18th of October. That is our 13th birthday, so you can look forward to some announcements on the 18th of October. But we'll start with next week. Next week, we will be doing something a little bit different with the catch-up. And as I say, we'll be having an Italian special with Francesca when she will answer any of your questions. It will not just be Italian. Obviously, we'll also update you on everything else that's happening, just as we normally do. But our talking point, our special feature next week will be on Italian. Okay, a quick few comments and hellos. So we've got Lorraine who's saying hola. We've got Grace who is saying non vedo l'ora per Francesca. Grazie, Grace. Jennifer's asking a question. Mark, how long does it usually take you to get conversational in a language? That's a tricky question because getting conversational can mean so many things. Does conversational mean being able to talk about any kind of conversational topics, or does it mean about getting by in the main things like ordering drinks and checking into hotels, getting travel and so on? Again, it also depends on how long you have to spend on a language. When I was much younger, I had lots more time to spend on language learning. These days, I tend not to have as much time. So it depends. I would say that depending on the difficulty level of the language, perhaps within maybe a couple of months, if I'm able to spend some time on it most days, then within a couple of months I would be comfortable ordering drinks and getting around, making friends, talking to people in a language. But to be honest, unfortunately, it is a long time since I've been able to spend that kind of time on language learning because I'm spending most of my time on producing content to help you learn. So we've got some other questions or other comments here. Penny saying hola. We've got Jessica saying get a visual dictionary, a good idea for people learning multiple languages at once. I found one that has 5 languages. Every picture has an object so that you can see the picture and then you can also see the vocabulary for each of those words. Sorry, I've just realised that Francesca is leaving. She's heading off to Italy tonight. So I'm not sure if she'll hear me, but if the team's watching this and they can say buon viaggio to Francesca for me. Ciao, Francesca. We'll see you next week for the catch-up. I think, do we have any other hellos? Yeah, you can probably hear Pierre Benoit laughing in the background there. I think, we've got a couple. We've got Dot Boyd saying hola desde Londres. Hola, Dot. We've got Philippe saying bonjour, bonjour. Betty's joining us from Singapore. We've got Metin joining us from Turkey. Jennifer, who is saying that she likes our courses. And Jennifer's also saying, or another Jennifer, is saying that she's very interested in the French masterclass. Very good, Jennifer. You will be able to get the link very soon. Kathy is joining us from New Mexico. David's saying hola. And I think, Francesca is learning French. Ray is saying it sounds good to him. Thank you, Ray. And Francesca is joining us from Toronto. We've got Rita, and we've got Judy, and we've got Dawn. So lots of comments there, lots of people joining us today. Thank you to you all. We've got Mario Paul saying ciao, Mark, and Jude saying hola. I think that is where we're going to leave it for this week. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you for sticking with us. And of course, before we go, we've got to say goodbye and thank you. We've got a quick question from Grace. When does Coffee Break Italian magazine restart? Next Monday. Next Monday, episode 6 of the magazine. You can look forward to that. So thank you, Grace, for asking that question. But we always finish with a thank you and goodbye in another language. Now, we have mentioned the Basque Country this week in our cultural segment, so let us go to the Basque Country and the language of Basque, which is a fascinating language. It's not linked apparently to any other languages. It's a language that has not got any links. But I will say thank you and goodbye in that language, and that would be Eskerrik Asko, I think. Agur. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for watching. Thank you for joining us this week once more, and I'll see you next time. Happy coffee breaking.